You know, throughout history, there have always been those driven people who just gave their absolute all to push the boundaries of human knowledge. I mean, they built incredible machines, they literally harnessed the forces of nature, and they unlocked secrets that the world had never even seen before. But for the five brilliant minds we're looking at today, well, their greatest discovery ultimately became their absolute last. So, today on this explainer, we are counting down the top 5 scientists killed by their own inventions. It's a pretty wild journey through ambition, sheer genius, and just fatal irony. And you'll definitely want to stick around for number 1 on this countdown. It is unquestionably both the most famous and honestly the most tragic story on this entire list. Let's dive right in. Kicking off at number 5. Number 5. Alexander Bogdanov, the blood transfusion pioneer. Now, Bogdanov was a Russian physician, a philosopher, and actually a science fiction writer back in the 1920s. And by any measure, this guy was living miles ahead of his time. He became completely obsessed with an idea that, let's be real, still sounds like sci-fi today. He firmly believed that transfusing blood between people could literally slow down aging, cure diseases, and create this profound biological unity among humanity. And the thing is, Bogdanov wasn't just sitting in a room theorizing about this. He was his own test subject. He performed 11 blood transfusions on himself. And he completely swore by the results. He claimed his eyesight was getting better, that he felt years younger. He was so convincing, actually, that his clinic in Moscow attracted massive attention. Even Lenin's sister reportedly went there for transfusions. But as you might guess, his grand goal crashed brutally into reality. In 1928, Bogdanov made a massive, fatal miscalculation. He transfused himself with the blood of a student who happened to be infected with tuberculosis and malaria. Within a matter of weeks, Bogdanov was dead at the age of 54. And the cruel, lingering irony of this whole story? That infected student actually survived. The very invention Bogdanov was so sure would grant him immortality was the exact thing that cut his life short. All right, number 4 on our list, Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier. We're shifting gears entirely here and traveling all the way back to 18th century France. Long before the Wright brothers, way before any mechanical engine ever lifted a human being into the sky, there was de Rosier. He was this flamboyant French chemist and essentially a showman who literally became the world's very first aviator. Back in 1783, de Rosier made global history as one of the first humans to ever fly in a hot air balloon. The celebrations all across Europe were absolutely massive. Suddenly, the sky was no longer the limit. But, for a visionary like de Rosier, that just wasn't enough. So by 1785, he sets his sights on an unprecedented feat. He's going to cross the English Channel. To achieve this, he designed a brand new hybrid balloon. The idea was to combine hydrogen gas with hot air to get the best of both worlds. But there was a catastrophic flaw in this plan. Hydrogen is incredibly, violently flammable. Placing it in close proximity to an open flame, that was just a catastrophic misjudgment. On June 15, 1785, his hybrid balloon caught fire high up in the altitude and plummeted straight to the earth. Killed on impact at just 31 years old, de Rosier and his companion became not just the first people to fly, but, tragically, the first to die in an aviation accident. Coming in at number 3, we leap forward into the modern era with Karel Susak, the daredevil stuntman inventor. While some inventors dedicate their lives to building, microchips or telescopes, Susak, a Canadian engineer with this relentless obsession for thrill-seeking, decided to build a barrel. But this wasn't just any barrel. It was a highly advanced, custom-built, shock-absorbing capsule. Get this. In 1984, he used this exact capsule to successfully survive a plunge right over Niagara Falls, and it worked flawlessly. He climbed out, soaking wet, maybe slightly bruised, but instantly famous. So, riding that massive wave of fame, Susak arranged his next spectacle just a year later. The setup was insane. He was going to be dropped 180 feet from the roof of the Houston Astrodome straight into a tiny tank of water way down below. The cameras were rolling, the tickets were completely sold out. But on January 20th, 1985, as that barrel was released, a terrifying mechanical failure kicked in. His timing mechanism malfunctioned, so instead of splashing safely into the center of the water tank, the capsule hit the hard rim by mere inches. Susak died the very next morning from his injuries. He was only 36 years old. The incredible invention that miraculously saved his life at Niagara Falls failed him by a matter of inches down in Texas. Now, at number 2, we arrive at a name that just commands absolute reverence: Marie Curie. the most famous name in science on our list, and arguably the greatest scientist of the 20th century. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and she still remains the only person in history to win Nobel Prizes in two different sciences, physics in 1903 and chemistry in 1911. Her groundbreaking discoveries of polonium and radium completely transformed physics, medicine, and our entire understanding of the atom itself. But honestly, the shockingly casual daily reality of her work is terrifying by today's standards. Before humanity truly understood the silent dangers of radiation, Curie carried test tubes of highly radioactive isotopes right in her coat pockets. She stored them in her desk drawers. She worked with these glowing elements for decades with zero protective equipment. She was famously fascinated by the soft, beautiful blue-green glow of her radium samples, completely unaware that this very beauty was literally destroying her cells. The physical toll it took was immense. By the end of her life, Curie was nearly blind from radiation-induced cataracts, and her fingers were permanently burned and scarred. In 1934, at the age of 66, she passed away from aplastic anemia, which is a fatal bone marrow disease caused directly by her decades of severe exposure. Her legacy is completely untouchable, of course, but the physical remnants of her work are actually still incredibly dangerous. Even today, her notebooks are so radioactive they are kept in lead-lined boxes in France. Researchers literally have to sign waivers just to look at them. And now we reach number 1. The top spot goes to an American chemist and engineer named Thomas Midgley Jr. Now, you might not know his name off the top of your head, but his inventions have absolutely touched your life, and they've likely impacted every single person watching this explainer. We can basically call him the accidental global threat. See, Midgley somehow managed to invent two of the most environmentally catastrophic substances in human history, all while just trying to solve basic engineering problems. First, back in 1921, he developed leaded gasoline to reduce engine knock. It was a brilliant engineering solution that, unfortunately, resulted in decades of deadly lead being pumped straight into our global atmosphere, causing worldwide lead poisoning. Then, in 1930, he invented CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, as a safe refrigerant for air conditioning. Another massive engineering success that secretly ravaged the planet by becoming the primary cause of ozone layer depletion. To truly grasp the scale of what Midgley did, consider what historian J.R. McNeill said. He noted that Midgley, quote, had more impact on the atmosphere than any other single organism in Earth's history. It is a staggering legacy of accidental destruction. But why is he on this specific list? Well, here's where the story gets darkly, unbelievably ironic. In 1940, Midgley contracted polio, which left him severely disabled and completely unable to get out of bed. But he was an engineer to his core. He couldn't just accept that limitation. So he invented this elaborate, highly complex system of ropes and pulleys to help lift himself up each morning. But then, on November 2nd, 1944, at the age of 55, the man who accidentally poisoned the sky became fatally entangled in those very ropes. He was strangled to death by his own ingenious invention. Zooming out for a second, we are left with 5 brilliant minds and 5 deeply cautionary tales. Every single one of these individuals changed the world, some for the better, and some, as we just saw with Midgley, accidentally for the worse. But what unites them all is that defining, relentless human need to experiment. It's that drive to build, to discover, to push the boundaries of what is possible, regardless of the personal risk. The reality is simple. Science moves fast, and sometimes it moves far faster than safety can follow. These stories force us to look at the sharp, double-edged sword of human innovation. I mean, we love to celebrate the breakthroughs, but we rarely pause to look at the tragic personal cost paid by the very people who built our modern world. I want to turn this over to you now. Which of these incredible, ironic stories surprised you the most? Think about it, and keep asking questions about the hidden history behind the science we just take for granted every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.